integrated, sequentially connected totality. Furthermore, since it clearly establishes the essential meaning to be dependent arising without even the slightest inherent existence, no doubt can remain as to whether truly existent other-powered phenomena are accepted in this system. In addition, those systems assert that there is no need to understand subtle selflessness in order to gain release from worldly existence, whereas the need to do so is clearly established in this treatise.
Briefly showing the actual intention objection, in that case there was no need to write the treatise, because the Master Nagarjuna has explained this extensively in the Fundamental Treatise on the Middle Way, called Wisdom, and so forth. Answer: there is no fault. When our own and others' contentions are refuted in the Master Nagarjuna's treatises by many collections of reasoning, it might be thought that the treatise on the Middle Way is a treatise provoking debate, intended to defeat opponents. The Fundamental Treatise Called, Wisdom and so forth are not intended to provoke debate, but to enable those seeking liberation to understand the suchness of things. Moreover, this treatise was written to facilitate understanding of the Master Nagarjuna's assertion that these stages of the path of practicing the yogic deeds enable those with a Mahayana disposition to attain Buddhahood. At the same time, it shows that the attainment of liberation by persons of the lesser vehicle also depends on understanding the suchness of things. Objection: have these points, too, not already been explained in Nagarjuna's precious garland on the Middle Way and so forth? Answer: there is no fault. The text shows very clearly and extensively how development of the altruistic intention to attain enlightenment must be preceded by abandoning the four errors of thinking of the aggregates as clean, pleasurable, permanent, and as having a self, also by training in the attitudes of persons of small, intermediate and great capacity. Moreover, since the text is written in an explicit and comprehensive way that refutes others' wrong ideas about the protector Nagarjuna's presentation of the two truths, it is not superfluous. The omission of any expression of worship in the text is to indicate that it is merely a supplement to dispel doubts concerning the Master Nagarjuna's text.
Question: how does this treatise explain the stages of the path? Answer: Candorkirti's commentary says, the first 4 chapters, showing that it is erroneous to consider the 5 aggregates as permanent and so forth, explain extensively how to develop aversion to cyclic existence. Of these, the first chapter shows that since the 5 contaminated aggregates are produced in dependence on causes and conditions, they are impermanent. By describing extensively how to meditate on death and impermanence, it shows the need to abandon the erroneous belief in permanence. The second chapter shows how it is erroneous to consider what is contaminated and impermanent to be really pleasurable. Anything impermanent is unsuitable as a trustworthy source of one's ultimate well-being. Moreover, the contaminated aggregates are vulnerable by nature. The third chapter shows how to eliminate the error of considering cyclic existence, i.e. the contaminated aggregates, as clean, for suffering always arouses aversion. Since it is inappropriate to feel proud by considering as the self and selves that which is unclean and to be discarded, the fourth chapter shows how to eliminate the conceived object of pride, the distorted self which it is appropriate to negate.
Thus these 4 chapters, by properly training one in the attitudes of a person of intermediate capacity, produce the realization that to remain in cyclic existence under the influence of contaminated actions and disturbing emotions is like being trapped in a pit of fire. Indirectly they show how those with a Mahayana disposition generate the aspiring altruistic intention. That makes them want to attain Buddhahood. Seeing that the attainment of Buddhahood depends on bodhisattva deeds, once the practical altruistic intention has been generated, the 5th chapter shows how to engage in such deeds. Seeing that one cannot fully accomplish one's own well-being, let alone others, because of being dominated by disturbing emotions, the 6th chapter extensively shows how disturbing emotions arise and so forth. Since objects such as visual form cause disturbing emotions to arise, remain and grow, the 7th chapter shows how to prevent the arising of overt disturbing emotions that focus on these objects. Since objects such as visual form cause disturbing emotions to arise in those who do not understand their fundamental mode of existence and who have an incorrect mental approach, the 8th chapter shows how to make the student's mind stream receptive, with advice about developing the wish to get rid of disturbing emotions and about the appropriateness of approaching the meaning of reality even by way of a positive doubt, and so forth.
Thus the first 8 chapters show how to ripen the mind stream fully, while the last 8 show the stages of the paths dependent on ultimate truth, which destroy obstructions formed by disturbing emotions. and obstructions to omniscience. The 9th chapter shows how to meditate on the refutation of permanence to demonstrate that products do not have even the slightest essence of permanence. The 10th explains internal and external selflessness. The refutation of permanent time is explained in the 11th. The refutation of extreme views is extensively explained in the 12th. In the 13th, the absence of true existence of the sense organs and their objects is explained in detail. In the 14th chapter, the refutation of extreme conceptions is explained by showing the feasibility of attaining liberation and enlightenment in that all-dependently arising phenomena, which resemble the ring of light formed by a whirling firebrand, do not have even the slightest inherent existence. The 15th shows extensively how to meditate on the production, abiding and disintegration of products as being empty of inherent existence.
The 16th, in showing the purpose of writing this treatise and eliminating remaining counterarguments by misguided opponents, explains how to meditate on settling the procedure between spiritual guides and students. Thus, the treatise extensively explains the stages of the paths that depend on conventional and ultimate truths by describing the focal objects of those paths. The specific meaning of the text has two parts. The first explains the stages of the paths dependent on conventional truths. The second explains the stages of the paths dependent on ultimate truth. Explaining the stages of the paths dependent on conventional truths has two parts. The first shows how the aspiring altruistic intention is developed after training in the attitudes of a person of intermediate capacity, by explaining elimination of the four errors. The second explains how to train in the deeds after developing the practical altruistic intention,